Great. Is your recorder on over here?
Yes, thank you. Yep.
Okay. Good morning. It's Monday, July 23rd, Selectmen Board of Selectmen meeting. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Do I have any public input? Great. Let's move on to review and approval of minutes. This is public session minutes from Monday, July 9th.
Yeah, correction.
Okay?
First page, appointments and department updates. Second to the last line in the first paragraph is Mrs. Sarles or Ms. Sarles, not Mr.
Oh, okay.
I'm all set.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion. Okay.
I'll move approval with corrections.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next is our non-public minutes from July 9th.
I have no changes.
Can you see those?
I did, I don't know where I put them. Yeah. I'll move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And those minutes are sealed.
Yes.
Okay. So, we're gonna schedule. Yeah, let's jump right to the signature file while we're waiting for our first appointment. Have a thank you letter to,
Stepping in now, excuse me, let me interrupt you.
oh, he's here.
Yeah.
All right, great. Hello, chief. Come on down. We're running a little early.
Yeah, right.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you.
Next time.
So currently we've had 103 fire calls, 119 EMS calls, 11 service calls, 9 special details, for a total of 242 calls for the year. 10 gas furnace inspections, 5 oil burner inspections, 5 wood pellet stove inspections, 13 life safety for a total of 33. We've received the performance bond for the new fire engine, and the truck has now been paid for by the leasing company, and the town's first payment has been made, as you've probably seen with the signing the check. The department has completed most of the back flushing and water flow testing of the town's 19 dry hydrants. We've also checked 3 out of the 4 cisterns in town, and there's a list of them here in case you have any interest of where they actually are in town. Chip knows where one is, because one is actually on the block there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're just doing our annual maintenance on those. We're currently working.
Is there, I'm sorry, Chief,
Yeah,
is
no.
there a dry hydrant going in there just up from Canaan Road, that pond that was put in up?
It's already there.
That's in there?
Yep. Yep. And 150 Mountain Road, it's number 24, Young
Oh,
Pond.
okay. Yeah.
And that tested out very good. I actually was up there last Thursday when they tested that. So
Thanks.
it's excellent to have the dry hydrants in the ponds when they work well, because we have water everywhere, but we have limited access to it as far as that goes. We are working with 2 pond owners in reference to some maintenance. One is Mountain Shadows and the second is Hurlbut Road. The department is also working with one of the property owners of Edgerly Estates project, as the fire department right away for the water source runs through the backyard of the property, and they wanted to know if we would give up the easement to that. Obviously, we're not, because that is the only access that we have to the water.
Down in that area, yeah.
For that 7 properties. The only way that we would give up the easement for that is to have a 30,000 gallon cistern installed.
That's the only alternative?
Yes. Otherwise, all the houses in there would have had to been sprinkled ahead of time, or a pond had been dug. But right now, the only alternative would be a 30,000 gallon cistern. For a 30,000 gallon cistern, why I would say that they probably didn't go with that option is the cistern itself is approximately $68,500. So, and then you have to install it from there. But that is, if it was installed, by the time that it was done, it would be certified, and it would be a guaranteed water source for, you know, the area. And obviously they would see a reduction in their insurance and things like that, because the insurance ratings would go down because it's a certified area to draft water. I am currently enrolled in a 2-day active attack integrated response course. This course is a performance level direct delivery course designed to improve integration between law enforcement, fire, telecommunications and EMS, telecommunications dispatch. In an active attack or shooter event, this course has been designed to improve the safety and survivability of victims during an active and shooter event, and increase the effectiveness and coordination and resources integration between police, fire, EMS, and dispatch. This was a free class put on by New Hampshire Department of Safety Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. It will be held in New London at the elementary school on the 6th and 7th. I felt that this class, not only because we have a school, would be good, but it would help in other major incidences besides, you know, like an active shooter thing. To give you a little
Does it
bit
have
more
to be in the
experience.
school?
It doesn't have to be in the school. No.
Excellent.
The ambulance billing so far has brought in $2,425.77.
And that's from what date to what date?
That is, I don't have specific dates as far as that goes, because we had a few, and I can give you an actual breakdown of the ones that we couldn't bill because that it was too long a period of time before we had billing and stuff in place. But this is actual money that was brought in 2018. And on the back, you'll see the pay schedule as far as how much is actually billed for different.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to give you a brief overview of that, but I can give you a general breakout of each one and what it actually costs to do that. But I wanted to sit down and figure that all out as we went along. As you can see, with that, there is not. You don't get back, obviously, the full amount as far as that you would bill. There's I think 4 different. You got New Hampshire Medicare, you have Penn Life Insurance, Anthem of New Hampshire, and ambetters were for the different areas that were built, and that's what they actually pay as far as what you see there. There's a couple that were workman's comp cases that are not listed on here, and there was one company that apparently pays, I think Blue Cross actually pays the person, so we may never see that if they took the money and went from there. This is through Quick Med Claims LLC.
And the items that are billed, but we got zero, what's the story there?
We're still waiting for that.
Oh, okay.
We may never see that, as that may be one of the ones that was too old to actually
Okay.
collect money for.
So you have combined claims, that's how this works?
So basically, you have.
For instance, the third and fourth items under Medicare
Mhm.
are the same, 2018, 222. And well, that's the trip date. Incident numbers are the
Right.
same, 18, 8,
Yeah.
229.
So basically, what you have is you have Medicare, and then they had a secondary insurance or something along that lines that paid the second amount.
Okay. So we only have 4, 5, 6, 7 ambulance.
As far as that we've been paid for so far.
But is that the number of occasions that we were able to bill?
So far this year, yes. Again, in the past, there was a certain amount. There are, again, a couple on here that do not show up. That one was a workman's comp, one was like a Blue Cross thing that we haven't seen anything for. And then after that, the cases are too old to be able to bill.
And you run a general log on the ambulance? I mean, you log out, log in, usage? So even if you're not gonna get paid or you're not gonna take people to the hospital, when the ambulance leaves the fire station,
Yeah.
do they?
Well, that would be on each of our, run forms, as far as if it was the ambulance, the rescue truck,
So we know at the end of the year, how many times we've actually,
gone out with it.
Gone out.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
true with all the equipment,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And what will take a little bit of time is that I wanted to see, sit down and figure out for each call how much it actually cost us to go on the call, as far as personnel, fuel, and things like that, so we have a better understanding of how much it actually would cost if we had to do the transportation down the road. Everyone would be different as far as it goes because of time and the amount of people and things
but
like
the
that.
billing is standard, or
The billing is standard as far as,
They don't care what
the-
it takes.
right. The billing would be whatever it is. So for example, BLS emergency rate would be $895, which is the current rate, plus whatever mileage it took. And as you can see, as far as what you would get back from Medicare, it's not the $895, it's far less, and they pay $7.36.
And you've got billing in February, March, April, and then it jumps forward to June. So nothing in May?
Either we didn't have anything in May, or it hasn't come through
Process.
yet.
Okay.
And again, we don't transport every time, so that's,
Right.
there could be a break. Okay, sitting down, looking further, because we're coming right up on time to do budgets again. think that there's probably 6 different ways that we could go with the ambulance contract. One is to the normal contract for 1 or 3 years, and whatever percentage there is for increase. I know that Stuart said that they would continue with that. 2, become part of the consortium, which is Moultonborough, Meredith, Sandwich, and Center Harbor. 3, Tuftonboro Transport from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. 8 a.m. to 12 midnight, with Stewart's covering from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. Tuftonboro continues first response. And that's not something that's worked out or I have any prices on or anything like that. These are all just general suggestions. Tuftonboro do transports with a contract with Stewart's to do backup or some other company. Tuftonboro do transports with purchase of a second ambulance per diem personnel or full-time personnel. Place an ambulance contract back out to bid with Tuftonboro first response and backup only. Those are all the options that we have out there. I think that obviously we need to look at that. We may want to contact Bob McGruder and Mark Howard where they were interested in before to help out with the project. I have contacted Chief Dave Bankston of Moultonborough because he's in charge of setting up the consortium meetings and things like that.
So all 4 of those towns also have their contracts coming up? Is that how that's working?
All 4 of those towns have a contract with Stewart's currently.
Okay.
My
But
understanding is that contract runs 1 more year.
yes,
on the
they have
consortium.
1 more year.
So,
as far as it goes.
I guess if we want to look at playing in the consortium, we got to get a year bridged in there to where their contract.
They would make a decision on what it would cost as
And
far
they-
as that goes.
Yep.
Do any of those towns have ambulance?
Moultonborough is looking at doing the same thing that we are currently as far as having an ambulance for backup transports. Center Harbor did have at one point in time until they had some changes and the new chief came in. And all the others do not as far as that goes.
And 8 to midnight, you can do that with your current staff?
Yes.
So no additional staff members?
No, not for that, not that, and that would give us an idea of whether or not that we could actually, do things as far as that goes. We found that that's the time that we have, the most people available, and after 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, people are getting ready to go to work and things, and but after 8 a.m., obviously, we have 2 of us that are here full-time. But they're all options that I wanted to put out there, because we actually, as
So
I
you
said,
can
we
get
need
back-
to look at that.
You can get back to us on the Moultonborough Meredith Sandwich
Yes,
Center.
because that's something that the selectmen actually have to be
Right.
part of the meeting and should be part of any of the decisions with that, obviously. That goes. And obviously, you can do any of those, and you may want to put it back out to bid to see where the prices actually come in and see what companies.
Are there any?
I'm sorry. I just, in my opinion, anything we do, we put out to bid.
Right.
Okay, Stewart's is our current contract, but whichever direction we decide we want to go, or if we want to look
Right.
at several vendors, we need to get in. First step is to get an RFP out
Yep.
and
Sooner than later.
right, exactly.
And are there other ambulance companies currently active in the area?
You do have, obviously, Care Plus that was our provider that wanted 370, I think it was 370,000, and they left us in the middle of the contract. That is doing the Ossipee, Effingham, Tamworth area. There are some issues with getting ambulances and stuff with that, but they are current
And
ambulance company.
anybody else?
I'm not sure if there may be a smaller company in the northern part of towards Conway. It used to be right in West Ossipee, but I think that they moved their operation, further north as far as that goes, and just gone into transfers and stuff. I'm not sure if they would look into coming into the town, but when you put it out the bid, you'll sure know.
Is there any other contract work that could be had for our ambulance? For instance, taking someone from Huggins Hospital to Catholic Medical or something, transporting patients?
I have seen, as far as one thing that we would have to do is have our ambulance certified as far as transfers,
Okay.
because you need a higher qualifications as far as that goes that we currently do not have. It's called PIFs, and we would have to have people certified in that, which not necessarily a bad thing, but the thing that you want to be careful of is that if you were just taking the transfers and stuff, that the ambulance obviously is out of town for the emergencies, or your two personnel are tied up. We have had requests for like private transports from town residents and stuff to the hospital. Again, for the private transfers, we're not certified currently to do that, but we may want to look at making sure that we could help our private residents and stuff.
Yeah, I would think that at least.
And, so I'll get you a further breakdown of all of the actual transports and stuff, so that you can have that, and you can see which ones we couldn't bill for, which ones are that are currently still outstanding and stuff like that. I've been working with Carroll County Sheriff's Office, Ospey Mountain Electronics, in reference to a radio issue with a B tower, which is located on Faraway Mountain. This issue with the tower is affecting the police department and the fire department side of things. A temporary repair on the fire side of things was completed last week and got us back up and running. And I'm not sure if the police department side temporary fix has been completed yet. I have to talk with Chief Shigori. The part that failed in the system has gone back to Malaysia, and it's sent there by Ospey Mountain Electronics, who is our provider as far as service with that, and it'll be gone for approximately a month. To get a new part is approximately 18 months to get the part. And it doesn't make sense to actually have one of them on hand, because the new system that is supposed to be taking place as far as the upgrades and stuff does not currently use these parts, so it would be a waste of money for that. But they had found a temporary repair to get us back up and running, but we had some major communication issues as far as being able to talk with dispatch and getting our tones and all of that stuff. Police department side, they were having issues as far as just getting out in different emergencies and stuff like that in different areas, but hopefully everything will be back up and running temporarily until the part gets back for that. So. And that's what I have so far. Seems like I was just here on the 2nd.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, right,
You've been busy.
absolutely.
Do you have
Thank you,
anything
Chief.
further?
I don't.
I don't.
Good.
Other than thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Jen.
We'll get Chief Shigori.
Thank you. While she's doing that, we do have a signature file, or a letter here.
Oh, it's raining?
It's raining, yeah.
A letter of thanks to Laner Excavation for the work they did on the septic system at the library, and one also for DJ's septic pumping service for their continuing service during that time.
I'll make a motion to sign those.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Consensus.
Yep.
Practice for
Yeah.
your new job.
And I have here the MS 535 financial report of the budget for the period ending December 31st, 2017. It's prepared by our auditor and signed off by the governing body.
I'll move we sign it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
May I ask a question while you're waiting?
You may.
The pond that Adam referred to is named what?
Which what?
The pond that he referred to,
We are currently working with two pond owners. One is in Mountain Shadows, the other is off of Herbert Road. Which pond is it?
It's,
Mountain Shadows is number 4.
No, does the pond have a name?
it's a man-made water hole.
yeah, it's just a
Yeah, it's like my
a
pond.
farm pond
Okay.
or a,
Hasn't been named.
And Walker and Varney is requiring on behalf of both of us?
no,
Just federally?
that's a,
Is that Edgewood?
it's, yeah, Edgerly Estates.
That's the one
And
connected.
that's not a pond, that's a access to the lake from the fire department, an easement. And they are looking to vacate that easement,
Mm.
so. All right. Go to correspondence here.
Okay.
Have
Mr. Wingate.
an email here from Sue Wingate, resigning from the planning board.
I make a motion, we accept her resignation and send her a letter of thanks.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Then we have information here on the fence repair at 19 Mile Beach with a suggested request for proposals. You had a chance to look this over?
I did.
And any thoughts?
I don't remember that I came to a conclusion.
All right.
Morning, Chief.
Hi, Chief. Come on up. Be with you just a second.
I guess if you give me a second. I guess the question I
Besides
had
what?
was, we've totally given up that the state was gonna participate in this at all.
I followed up on that and speaking to the supervisor, he will get us the paperwork if we want to pursue the state reimbursement.
So I'll make a motion, we put out the RFP.
All right, and I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So my understanding is that there's an opportunity to get reimbursed for the damage, but
Yes.
they don't do the work.
Correct.
And they're not proactive about putting money up.
Right.
Speaking of the state, well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
All right.
And the people I dealt with were very helpful, they were not adversarial.
Yeah.
There's a tree down at the cemetery, what is that cemetery?
Right by North Country Village.
Right by North Country
Yep.
Village. That's leaning on the wires. Whose responsibility is that? Is that the state or is that the power company, do you
We
know?
put a notice, we called I don't know if it's power, 'cause it's not leaning on their wires.
It's the lower wire,
The
which is
telephone.
cable or telephone.
Yeah, we've called them.
And the state's not gonna do anything?
I don't believe the
It's
state.
gonna fall down and hit somebody, and
Yeah.
then what do you do?
I don't know. I can ask the state again about it. We
I
didn't ask the
just
state,
saw
we
a
went
tree
to the
company.
power companies, the telephone cable, but I'll ask the state about it.
I'll ask the road agent, because I saw a tree company turn up Northland Road. I don't know, are we having any tree work now?
I just went through that with the tree across from my house and the power company. I worked through the power company, but it took a long time. And then they subcontract out to like top-notch tree company, and they'll come and remove the limb or remove but it's the electric, I had to go through the electric company.
Yeah.
So, good morning, Chief.
Morning.
How are you?
Good. I didn't get the activity report done. We've been busy with a bunch of stuff. July is one of our busier months with people around. One of the things we're having, reference to parking, there's been questions about the parking at the Muir Lake. As you recall, we had a discussion as to whether or not there should be any parking there. And a couple of the fishermen that have been going there for a while were kind of upset when we said it's been changed to no parking here. I thought I'd bring that up anyways, that's one of the issues going on. Let's see, well, I went through stocking training.
Is there, are you able to recommend parking for them somewhere else? I guess that was the question that was always in front of us.
Right, but I think part of it is we can park off to the sides without blocking it. We've been doing it for umpteen years, so, and if we have to move somewhere else, they're basically telling us we can't do it to go fishing here, is how it's been.
I'm thinking of the church, for instance. I mean, is there some way to, that's not that far of a
Right.
walk.
The sign up there does say, recommend trailers go down to the 19 Mile Bay Beach parking lot there, the present sign. So, you know, it is first come, first serve. There's not a lot to the park there, but I mean, that's the question as to what we want for parking there. You know,
Why don't we continue to monitor it?
All right.
I mean, as I go by 2 or 3 times a day, I haven't come across any unsafe issues or someone almost clipped. As a matter of fact, objective number 1 is the exposure vehicles had when they were getting stuck and being pulled out, and it seems to be a tremendous improvement, and I've had 3 people come to me and say thank you, so.
No, I've gone by 3 times and there's always somebody parked right to the Wolford side of the ramp. So I don't know that we're gonna eliminate all parking without putting an awful lot of.
I've never seen anyone on the pavement, for example.
No, they're not parking on the pavement, they're off to the side, but.
Talking about signs, have you been working with the road agent about getting the signs up for all the other areas?
We talked about it, he's gonna get me the company name that we need to go through and take care of that, so.
This is not an ambushing session on my part, but we're halfway through the summer,
I know.
and in fairness, yes, you have been busy, so, thank you.
And we also, I mean, the radar signs here, I've talked to him about where we can mount that. Apparently, to go through the state, though, I have to submit them with a map of the locations where they're put, so I gotta go through the process to do that. So, working on that. We've done, one of the things the state did was some new training on stalking, we all went through that. We've been, like I said, pretty busy with a few other things going on, and we're also moving forward on Tuesday the 7th. There's going to be a night out, part of National Night Out. We're going to do it down at Davis Field. Waiting for confirmation on a couple of things, but we're going to be working with Parks and Rec to do a community event.
And there'll be a press release on
There
it.
will be,
On-
it's already done.
Yeah, on August 7th.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
Tuesday.
That's the day of the event.
Yes, from 6 to 8 at
Yeah.
night.
So, yeah, we ought to get the information out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I'm waiting for confirmation so I can say these people will be there too. Trying to get the state police bomb robot that's pretty popular and also a K9. So I believe we just haven't got a solid confirmation on that yet, but that will be done. Actually, the brochure is done, we're just waiting for confirmation on those two.
Very.
And I've also been trying to get to the RFP for the building, and I bought the Adobe so I can actually do it, like take somebody else's and work with it to make it happen. So I'm gonna be working on that this week.
Could I meet with you and have a conversation?
Yeah.
You were on the last police station committee, and you were excellent, and I'd be willing to work with you if it's okay with them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, no decision
Nice
to
to have
be
a
made without your
discussion
permission.
Huh?
before we get it right.
Right.
Before
Oh,
we have
yes,
a decision.
yes, oh, yes, it's a team
I'll
effort.
prepare a draft for you is what I'm working on
Right.
doing.
Yep.
Yeah, and there'll be areas you need to defend and other areas you don't need to defend, so.
And that's about where we're at right now. Just got a bunch of court stuff coming up, and I had a right to know request from the ACLU, so I'm working on those things.
Oh, fun, fun, fun.
Great.
Regarding what, or can you tell us?
It was a case from 4 years ago on criminal defamation, so I've CC'd Rick Sagar and all my correspondence with them so far.
Court documents weren't good enough.
Apparently they don't want to get the court documents.
Oh,
They want to get it through me instead. Probably because we're probably cheaper than the court documents, I don't know.
more accessible.
More accessible, yes. So,
I have some things.
Yep.
I want to start off with 2 compliments. I spoke to you and complimented you on, first of all, nothing but kudos on the parking regulations. You spent a lot of hours. They're statutorily correct. I've heard positive things, and I want to say thank you. Working on projects like that, whether it's, in my opinion, whether it's for the New Hampshire Chiefs or for the town of Tuftonboro, you're very skilled at that, and I want to, on behalf of all of us, say thank you. The second one was, in your role as president, you have to respond, or you choose to respond to issues that come up, and there was recently one in the newspaper about cameras that go in cruisers that read license plates,
license plate readers, yep.
you know, and I think the cost is about $16,000 per unit and whatnot. And I read the article, and I thought the reporter did a good job. They had you in paragraph form talk about a number of issues, and you were very positive. For example, looking for an Alzheimer's patient or something like that. You did it in 5 sentences, and I just wanted to say, as I told you personally, I wanted to say thank you.
Probably said more than that, but that's what they cut me down to. But I also did emphasize that,
Damn reporters.
I did emphasize that given the cost, I don't see them being widespread. I mean, we have other priorities that we need to look at. So it's, you know.
Well, and doesn't that run up against the limitations of, we can't take pictures of license plates with our radar machines?
They carved out an exception for the LPRs, license plate readers, but they have to be attached to a vehicle moving, and we can only hold the data for a couple minutes, 3 minutes. After that, it has to be purged, so even if it was valuable, it's no, like, if we're going to, I can remember a time going to an alarm, most of the time they're fake, this one was real, it was a burglary, it happened. But if that was more than 3 minutes, we wouldn't have that data anymore. But anyway, I passed the car on the way, happened to remember the plate myself, and because of the way they acted, they blocked the road and I had to go around them to get to the alarm. But had that been with a license plate reader going to a scene, other states have been able to solve crimes with that.
Yep.
But we can't here because we can only hold them for 3 minutes. So, but I don't see a lot of places going to them. There's only probably 5 departments that I know of that have expressed an interest in them at this point.
Yeah.
If prices go down and become more available and they become more useful, there's still some roadblocks as to what we can do with them, because it's more of a technical issue, I think, than a legal issue. It's how to get the computers to communicate. But anyway, I don't see them becoming widespread in New Hampshire anytime soon. Some states, there are a lot of them. I don't see it here. I just want to be clear, I'm not looking at getting them. That's why. Because they're $12,000 to $16,000, and we have other priorities clearly. And I don't know that we don't have the huge issues that I think that would be as beneficial. Anyway.
To go through my list, there's a couple of individuals, their anniversary dates
Yep.
have passed, and I know you're working on those job performance reviews.
Yep.
Thank you. Sims bushes, who did we decide when the suggestion was made to have them trimmed?
I spoke to his maintenance person about doing that.
Okay,
So, and that should be, I believe, taken care of soon.
okay, that's great, thank you. And signs for the town ordinance, the no parking sign that's right across from those bushes, wasn't there gonna be another one?
There is one.
If
Well,
I-
not right across from the bushes, but just up from it a
If
little
I
bit.
remember, we had some problems with vehicles parked in there because that's,
Yeah, they did put an extra one in the middle,
they did take care of that? Okay.
on both sides of the road.
To your satisfaction,
Yep.
right? I'm gonna speak to the road agent today about signs throughout town. For example, on the Class 6 roads, there's some that are missing. I don't know if you can assign an officer to that, but I think now is the time to update our signs. You dealt with the radar sign, that's great. Isn't it amazing? There's always a lot of paperwork to slow cars down,
Yeah.
so I back you up on that.
When we first discussed it, I didn't hear anything about this need for a map or anything. They just told me the description's needed. So, anyway, we'll wade through it.
It's in the fine print.
My question that I always ask you about community relations program, and I read on your logs that you've gone to camps and the associations
Yeah.
and whatnot. Hopefully that was constructive,
Yeah, it was, definitely.
but thank you for that. And the police station we've already discussed, so thank you.
Yeah.
And maybe you could have a quiet summer the rest of the summer, knock on wood.
You got anything else?
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief.
All right.
Blistering pace.
Yes.
Water quality protection grant opportunities. Come on
How's everybody?
down.
Hi,
Yep.
Sue. How you doing?
Very good, how are you?
Welcome.
Good to see you. Hi.
Welcome to downtown Tufton.
Yep.
A lovely place to be. Well, the Lakes Region Planning Commission, every year, and other planning commissions work with Department of Environmental Services on grant funding that helps municipalities develop water protection programs. And LRPC has done several of these over the years with various communities. Last year, most recently, with the town of Ashland and the town of Meredith. Ashland, we worked with them to adopt an aquifer groundwater protection ordinance in their zoning ordinance. And with the town of Meredith, we worked with them to adopt stormwater runoff regulations in their site plan review regulations. And so we're getting ready for the next round of grant opportunities with DES, and in the fall they will award those grants. And so we're just talking with some of our member municipalities about whether they'd be interested in working on a project like that. And looking at the state map of municipalities that have adopted groundwater protection ordinances, Tufton Borough kind of stands out as not having done that among towns around Lake Winnipesaukee. So we wondered if you'd be interested in working on that. So that would be through the planning board, if it's an ordinance that would be adopted into the zoning ordinance, you know, the planning board would, we would work with them on developing it, and then, of course, it would go on the ballot for voters, so it'd be up to the voters to decide whether or not to accept it. So that's, I think I sent Ashland's ordinance, and there was a question about, they have a public water supply program, and Tufton Borough does not. So there was a question about, well, are there, how do towns that don't have, you know, public water supplies handle those ordinances? And so I sent, I think it was the town of Effingham, they adopted this ordinance 2011, I think. And each town sort of, you know, there's a sort of a basic recommended structure to these things and types of things you want to regulate and work into your ordinance. But each town sort of develops it for its own needs, because each town is different in terms of what its aquifers and groundwaters and surface waters are. So that's why I'm here, to see if you're interested in that. If LRPC were to be awarded a grant again from DES, it would be probably late fall. And so we wouldn't begin working with the towns that are interested until maybe the first of the year, which would be really too late for you know, the schedule of getting things done for the March 2019 town meeting. So we'd really be working towards the March 2020 town meeting. That sounds like that sounds far away to me, but it's really not all that far away.
Time passes quickly, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, we could do some mapping with the community in terms of location of groundwater sources, and certainly your surface waters. Wellhead protection areas would be probably, the school probably has a well, and there'd be a wellhead protection area there. Might be some other small community well.
The campsite.
Yeah, the camps and places like that, so those could be mapped out. So that's the kind of thrust of what we would be working on, and we just
So you
wondered
said-
if you'd be interested.
You sent a copy of the Effingham
Yes.
ordinance to,
To Karen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
who did it, Karen?
I have one
And
here.
I was gonna say, and the second one you sent is in the
Yeah, the
appointment
Effingham
folder.
one.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Ashland one is the most recent one that we worked on, but they have a public water supply, so it's a little bit different for them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I scanned the Effingham one that came through.
Right.
And I didn't read it in depth,
Well,
but it's pretty deep. I mean,
Yeah.
several pages worth of information.
yes.
And I didn't spend enough time looking at it to get my arms around it.
Right. It's basically sets up certain categories where, you know, mostly residential and small uses, certain uses are exempt. Residential uses would be exempt. It sets up some prohibited uses like petroleum bulk storage and things like that. And then there are other uses that are permitted that would require a sort of a review by the planning board of how certain types of substances would be stored so that they wouldn't leak and contaminate the groundwater resource. So that's, it's kind of that structure.
So this kind of falls in with our aquifer or our
Watershed program.
watershed survey.
Yeah,
which I don't think is completed, is it?
Just
Just started, yeah.
So we need to get that done before we do an ordinance, I would hope. Because we gotta know where the water is, that's
I don't think it's, needs to be independent. The information is already available. We
Yeah.
know where the aquifers are, which way they flow.
but the extent of them, I guess, is what I was questioning.
I think we know that.
The USGS has pretty much mapped that years ago. So getting your hands on that kind of information isn't difficult.
It was
So the
ready.
aquifer and the watershed are two different?
They are separate.
Yeah. And this isn't directed towards the watershed issues that might arise?
So I think you're talking about the work with the Lake Winnipesaukee
Yes.
Association?
Yes.
Yeah, they're not connected. They're probably can work in parallel with each other.
The watershed plan deals with surface waters
Right.
primarily, am I right?
That's right.
And stormwater runoff and that sort of thing.
Right.
And water quality ordinance deal primarily with groundwater?
Primarily, the vast majority of people in our towns and the region have, their private wells, and that's their water supply. And so what goes on under there and what can contaminate that could have widespread effects on all of us. So that's what it's aimed at, is just handling and storage of certain chemicals and products so that there isn't contamination into the groundwater resource.
And
It
it's
was-
primarily directed toward commercial and industrial
Yes,
activity?
yeah, the small scale or resident, you have a couple gallon petroleum tank in your garage. I mean, that's not what what this would be aimed at, that those uses would be exempt.
Kind of future development issues.
Yeah,
that-
yeah,
Or retroactive, I suppose. I mean, we had that problem with Cal 2000 and that whole
After the fire.
debacle.
Mhm.
So just a,
It was recognized in the last master plan as being important. We recognize it in the current draft master plan as being important. It's a protection in the future. Many of the aquifers are overlaid by sand structures, and which have been mined in the past. And those are kind of ideal places to do some of the things like petroleum storage. You've got a nice flat place, it's got a road going to it, and it's not developed. That'd be the kind of thing you'd be looking at. But we looked at a stormwater ordinance one time when we were dealing with Mirror Lake issues. And small town like Tuftonboro, I think it needs to be simple and something that our planning board and our only code officer can deal with. And some of the stormwater ordinances we were looking at were made for the big city, not for us. So I think Jack needs to be really involved and the planning board needs to be involved in how that eventually looks.
yeah.
Well, I think-
And that would be the role that we would play in walking through that process, so that it does end up being something that fits for Tuftonboro and you can handle with the resources you have.
Yeah, I guess in my mind, it's important that wherever we go hits a balance. That we don't take something that has a primary benefit in areas with huge amounts of development and lots of commercial or industrial activity, and dump it on the table so that anybody that wants to do anything in our small town has to wade through all of this stuff before they can even start working on putting a project together.
Right. The way Effingham set it up, I mean, there are about a dozen prohibited uses. Other uses are permitted, and it works as an overlay district, so whatever your underlying already existing zoning regulation in various districts doesn't change it. It sort of overlays that and says in these high transmissivity aquifer areas, these certain uses would not be permitted. And there are things like dry cleaning facilities and junkyards and snow dumps and solid waste landfills and hazardous waste disposal facilities. Those kind of things where the products that are associated with that, if not operated properly, could seep into the groundwater. So those would be prohibited. And then all other uses would be permitted, but there may be some best management practices applied as to how you store those products.
So how, in the management of this thing,
Yeah.
how does it affect the property owner? They've created a map, right, where you've got the blue, for instance, on the Effingham map.
Yeah,
Any property on that blue section or purple section, I'm sorry,
yeah,
is gonna
Sort
be
of these
subject to
areas.
these regulations?
right,
Okay.
But
Anything
not-
not on that is not subject to the regulations?
correct. And then you have exemptions. You might be on that, but
And how does this play with the regulations DES has in place?
Well, DES's authority only goes so far. I think we've found that, they do have some practices about storage and use of these chemicals and certain products. Their enforcement isn't, and inspection and that sort of thing isn't, they're not able to be all over the state. They do rely on municipalities to do that. And I think the sort of models of these ordinances have been developed through working with DES. And I think it's just an extension of, locally controlling where you want these ordinances to apply and how you want them to apply.
Well, I think the language would have to be pretty well crafted.
Yes.
If you will.
Yes.
Yeah,
And, I'm thinking of the Wolfboro conundrum that we're in. They could call it household effluent. But when you're talking 300,000 gallons a day of household effluent, the accumulation of chemistry
yeah,
in one form or another is going to be dramatically increased. So, and that's right on top of an aquifer. So how do we craft it so that an operation like that doesn't say, well, it's just household, it's not, because households are exempt, I imagine, from this. But we don't have that ordinance currently, so I guess we don't have to.
I'd like to give us some thought.
Yeah.
We certainly have,
Well, I'm sure-
we certainly have a planning board and a board of selectmen and a conservation commission that are ahead of the curve on a lot
And
of
how
these.
we have well setbacks.
Mhm.
Every house has,
yeah.
not every house, but most of the houses have a well setback. How does that play into this? Does that,
It doesn't change
Because it's
those,
well, I'm thinking, does that alter the layout of what things can happen where?
no, it's more focused on the types of chemicals or products that, if not handled properly, could contaminate the groundwater. not where your well should be or that type of thing.
I think about an aquifer as like an underground lake. And, things that sink flow to the bottom. And once you pollute an aquifer, it's probably all over. You can't, it's gonna be polluted for
everybody.
for everybody forever. So this is just prevented. What can you do to prevent a bad situation like that from ever occurring and not step on anybody's toes while you're doing it?
So I
That goes
think,
back to the well-crafted statement.
Language, right?
yeah, and I think it's all in how you work with property owners where these regulations would apply. So say it's a automotive repair shop. You sort of work with them on their best management practices that, you know, provide protection so that there isn't contamination and that sort of thing. Anyway,
Okay.
Great. I'd
So-
love to see a few ordinances that you've crafted, and we'll take a look at.
yeah, so
Sure.
there's the Effingham one, the Ashland one we provided.
Does it make a difference to your grant proposal whether we're in or not?
No. You know, DES wants to see that, you know, there are possibilities out there. Plymouth is interested in working with us. And we usually try to get 2 or 3 towns to.
What is the dollar figure?
The total grant, I don't
No.
really know. Oh, for,
What would Tuftonboro
Yeah.
hypothetically have to come up with for money?
I don't think anything. Just, you know, we have the grant amount that would pay for our time in working with you.
Okay, well, there's something for us to chew on.
Yeah, okay, good.
Thanks
And if we
very
can
much.
answer questions, I'd be happy to
I'm
do
sure we'll
that.
have
Yeah,
them.
good.
Good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Susan.
See ya. Bye.
All right.
Susan?
Next up is Susan Taylor.
That's me.
Up-
Sit here.
Come on up to the table. Yep.
Hi,
Susan.
Susan.
time
I'm
here.
Lloyd Wood. Welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Chip
Nice to
Nolan.
meet you all.
Bill Markison.
It's my first time
Have a
coming
seat.
here, so I have no idea what I'm supposed to do.
Oh, just sit down and we'll have a
Names
conversation.
on the list.
Yep. You wanted to come and talk with us about the swap shop, correct?
Yes, I would. I go up there a lot because it's fun and you can sometimes find some really good stuff there. I went up the other day, emptied out, there's nothing there, it was a Tuesday, I think. And there was a woman there and I said, what the heck, where's all this stuff going? I was thinking people from out of state were taking it, bringing it home and selling it. And she said, the guys in the office come over with a bulldozer and throw it all out. What's the point of a swap shop if you're gonna take everything and throw it away? And I walked over to where the dumpster in there, sure enough, there's all the stuff in there. And most of it's good stuff. What's the point of having a swap shop if you're gonna toss it out? Every week they do this. Women have offered to come in and monitor it, take care of it, you know, do the cleaning, weeding, whatever. And the manager, what's his name, Clay, said they didn't want them up there. How can we swap shop? If we're gonna throw everything out the day after everybody brings it up there, why even have it open? Just close it down. That's my question. What the heck's going on up there?
Well, we have Clay here today, so I guess we can talk about it when Clay comes
Yep.
up.
I'm
The
sure-
problem that I remember hearing about was that there are a number of problems. One is it gets filled up with stuff that really doesn't belong in the swap shop. It's not monitored. The coming and going of the product seems to be unhandled, if not mishandled.
Well, I've
So I
been up
guess
there
the-
quite a bit, excuse me,
Yeah.
on Sunday when it's generally really, really busy. And it is really, really busy and people are bringing stuff in, but they're taking stuff out as well.
But a lot of folk, and
It's not all junk.
I'm sure it's not all junk, but the problem, one of the problems is that we charge for disposable televisions, for instance, or we just charge for disposable other things, and rather than pay the fee, it ends up in the swap shop. So that's a misuse of the swap shop.
Well, the times that there's a television in there are rare.
The
Because I
other-
go up every single week
the
and
other-
I've seen one TV and that's it.
I mean, we did have a regulation about what could go in there, and it's like electric appliances can't go in and things like that, because there's certain liability issues.
There's no signs outside, first of all, about what cannot go in there. If you're gonna clean it out the day after everybody's brought their stuff, why have it open? Close it down.
Well, that's been.
Really, I mean, what the heck are we doing here? You know, I mean, I'm driving up there looking for my little treasures and the place has been swept clean. There's nothing there but books. Close it down then, put a lock on it.
Well, and that's one option that we've considered. I don't know if we've
I mean, there are other women up there that have, when I asked them, where's all the stuff, and they told me what had happened to it. I was appalled. Put a sign out saying, we're gonna dump all this stuff on Monday, so if you don't take it Sunday, you're out of luck. But have something posted so people aren't wasting time. A lot of stuff that comes in there is decent. I've gotten a bureau, I've gotten a bicycle, I've gotten toys for my grandchildren, just take them home, clean them up, and they're perfectly good. So it's not all junk. In fact, 10% may be junk. But there are things that somebody will want. And if women have offered to go up there and monitor, clean it, organize it, and they're told, we don't want junk here.
Okay, I don't know.
I'm not,
That's not come
yeah,
across
I'm not aware of.
But
There's a woman that out in the other building, I talked to when I came in the other week, and she verified everything I said, an older woman. She said that, yes, this is what goes on, and so, I mean, it's not just me, it's just a lot of people don't know what to do about it, so they just leave.
I'd like to speak if I could.
you have the stick.
I'm in my 7th year as selectman. I've probably visited about 10 transfer stations in the state of New Hampshire. Swap shops are going away. And let me
That's too
explain why. First of all, that's an industrial site. There are trucks in, trailers, deliveries are going out. Just for example, it takes 3 people to, when they make a bale, and there's the tractor that has to move the bale out. One drives the tractor, one's in front, one's behind. You don't need a kid crushed. And I can't be any delicate about it. We hear about these things in the newspaper every month.
Why was
What
it open to
happened.
begin with then?
Okay,
Who
just,
did it?
let me finish, please.
Sure.
Number 2 is, I personally have viewed 7 conflicts and misbehavior up there with citizens that have taken the staff to task and were, to be modest, I won't go into their misbehavior that I have viewed. Okay, the people who work there aren't cops, they're doing a job and they already have been assigned tasks. Inappropriate contents. I personally have seen the crew have to take out gas and gas containers, tanks, kerosene, and those things. How do we get rid of them? We aren't allowed to take gasoline and kerosene. There's certain types of tanks that are under pressure we can't take. And I've watched it, and it's a very slight minority, but and jam it in there. The next thing is the state of New Hampshire says no electrical appliances. And it's a liability issue for somebody that if I put a hairdryer up there or a light and he takes it home and plugs it in, what if it causes a fire? That has happened in other places, so we can't do that. What the crew does is they snip the cord and put it in a bucket, and it gets melted down by an independent contractor, and it's a few bucks, and then the metal goes into the metal pile. In the past, there have been people who have volunteered, and the police have had to be called because of the language. They're putting their hands on people, and they really ruined it for the volunteers. There's so many nice people in town, but that's inappropriate. I did some math. There are days when there are things that don't belong there or aren't selling. And I'll give you an example. I took up 5 end tables and 6 chairs. I went to the person in charge and said, what do I put out here? He says, end tables go like that, Lloyd. Chairs, for $30, please put over in the CD, construction debris. Chairs just don't disappear on us, type thing. He knew I did that, and for $30 I got rid of a truckload. I did some math, and that is, if they take 5 bucket loads out of there on a busy summer day, it's taking them away from their other work. It's moving a piece of equipment through a job site, and to get rid of a construction debris is $115 a ton. A bucket holds at least half a ton by the time you pack things in there. Let's say it's 2 or 3 buckets a day. That's $2,300 that we didn't make, that people ducked out on fees, but it's $2,300 that the town has to come up with. I like the idea of a transfer station. The people up there have really tried to make it a go, in my opinion. However, transfer stations in these little areas are going away statewide.
Swap shops.
Swap shop. It's just not worth the headache and the heartache. Thank you for coming in. I'm not asking that it close permanently or anything like that, but I'm
Why isn't
trying to
anything
balance.
posted then? Why is there nothing posted so people know? I mean, I didn't know you couldn't bring electrical stuff. I brought coffee pots up there.
You know what?
How the heck do I know?
I will ask that question.
There's not a sign out there.
I will ask that question.
So I'd say just close it down. If it's that much of a hassle, close it down.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
And
All right. So,
that's why we get
why don't we let's see, Jim. Jack? Are you available? Let's just jump right to the Windswept Island issue. Hi. Bill Marcus.
Lloyd Wood.
Nice to meet you, Doug Bean.
Doug, nice to meet you.
George Hall. Nice
George.
to meet you, sir. Nice to meet you.
I recognize talking to you on the telephone.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming down, sir.
Thank you. How you doing, Jack?
Hi, how are you?
Thank you. Jack. George Hall. Nice to meet you. So, thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking the time to get together. We're kind of here at a point where we would like to begin a factual dialogue. But before we do that, I'll give you a little bit of idea who I am. My name is Doug Bean. I am a resident of Tufton Borough, and I have been living at 178 Cow Island now for the last 24, 25 years. I come from for 5 generations in town, in the Lakes Region area, and we've all lived on island properties. I have 4 brothers that currently live on Little Camp and Mink Island, and so I was brought up as a baby on Little Bear. So my family, for generations and generations, have appreciated the lifestyle of living on island. In doing so, we also understand how valuable and how fragile that ecosystem is, especially in Lake Winnipesaukee. I'm a general contractor. I specialize in waterfront construction. Been doing that for about 50 years now. I've got to know the people at DES and the different building departments and officials, and have a lot of respect. And I have learned through all of my years of construction on Lake Winnipesaukee and the different lakes that there is one specific thing that has been indoctrinated into not only me, but I think in every builder who works on the water, is that you cannot make a non-conforming property or structure more non-conforming. That's what we've all been told, and we need to be able to meet and exceed all of the New Hampshire DES regulations as far as shoreline, wetlands, and we've done that. I've done that on my property at 178 Cow. I bought that property knowing what the use was. I got a building permit from Jack. I got a dock permit. I got a septic system permit. I got a beach permit. I just obtained a boathouse permit that took me over a year. And I've done all the right things. So with that said, we were fortunate enough, again, to purchase this property 24 years ago. And when I say fortunate enough, it is a fairly large piece of property, which I have my family living with me. I have 2 sons and 4 grandkids, and we have built a second dwelling where they live with us as well, on the same property. And as well, we are an abutter, even though I think the definition doesn't allow for me being a abutter, but I'm an abutter within 35 to 50 feet of an island called Windswept. We moved and purchased our property knowing that Windswept was kind of a landmark. We were told that was the place where Bob Montana used to come out during the day and do his cartoon strip. So we were very fortunate to live across from a landmark, and we knew the present owner was a guy named Guy Miller from Florida. We used to call him Cracker Miller. He owned a construction company or a concrete company, and so I did business with him on a regular basis. However, Mr. Miller, for the 20-odd years that we were neighbors, he respected the use of that property and came out during the day, played cards with friends, very rarely. And I could probably tell you in 20 years, I could probably name 5 times where people ever stayed overnight there, because basically the camp is a 1-room, no bedroom, no electricity, no water, and no approved waste and water sanitary facility. So it's just a platform on a pile of rocks that you go out to and you have a nice day, and that's what it was used for. Mr. Miller decided to put the property up on the market for sale at an outrageous price, but regardless, the property sat on the market for 6 years. And in that 6-year period, we were constantly working with the realtor, enabling us, or enabling the realtor to make sure that he is explaining to potential buyers the use of that particular property. About 3 years ago, the property got finally sold to a couple out of Massachusetts. And before they bought it, they brought my wife and I, and just so I can tell you, this property is so close to us that we can hear anybody say anything. We can hear words. I mean, we're that close. They came over with a bottle of wine, and they said we are a potential buyer for the island. And at which point my wife and I said, gee, are you going to change the use? Because the use is very important to us because, again, of the fact that our water lines are opposite on either end of that property. One for my wife, my wife and I, and the other one's for my grandkids. And, we're concerned that, the use is not going to be abused. And they said, no, we will not change the use of this place at all. We respect it, and we respect you people, and we're going to use it as it always has been used. So, the day they bought this property, or right after they bought this, nothing could be farther from the truth. They brought out local architects and engineers, of which we all know, and I don't know why they would do this, but they brought out architects and engineers to get their idea on how to enlarge the building, how to make it bigger, And at such time, we contacted and made a complaint with the state New Hampshire DES, because we felt that there was a real issue here that they needed to resolve, and that is the fact that the property had no water and no ability to get rid of rain. During this investigation, we found out that there was a grandfathered holding tank, which they told us on the property. Now, we had never seen anybody use this holding tank, because when Mr. Miller used to go out, he used to use 5-gallon buckets to put his waste in, because we'd go over and pick blueberries and we'd find all these. But it didn't bother us, because we knew that the property didn't have any facilities. But in investigation, the tank was installed prior to 1968, so the state said they had no jurisdiction, and therefore they couldn't again rule for or against any kind of use of that tank. But they guaranteed me that because of that and the fact that it could be no pressured water, that there could not be any enlarging of the property or the building, and that the tank would have to be periodically pumped out and regulated with a recording, a logbook. So, this is when the problems all began, because about 2 years later, after we saw this place turn into a major thoroughfare of people staying overnight, not just a couple, 7 or 8 people staying in this one room with no beds or anything placed, staying not just one night, staying multiple nights without leaving the island. And we've been seeing this for 2 years, that this place is turned into a permanent overnight facility. So we asked the owner, when we saw the owner 2 years later, we asked him that to show us the logbook, because we haven't seen any pumping going on, because we lived there full time. And he said to my wife and I haven't had to pump because there's no effluent in the tank. And we said, there's no effluent in the tank. You guys have been using it for 2 years on an ongoing basis, and there's no effluent? And they said no. So at that point, we called up the state and said, what do we do? And they said, you gotta get water tests and see if there is alkali. So, not knowing a lot about that, my wife and I went down to the Laconia Waterworks, and we got their little vials, and we started testing. And sure enough, it came in positive for E. coli. So we called the state up, and they said, I'm sorry, Mr. Bean, but unless you can prove the where this origination of this E. coli, we can't help you. So, 2 years later, we then get a hold of the governor's office. We go to the governor and say, listen, something has got to give here, because we have a major problem. The property is not being used correctly. The people now, we're hearing rumors, and they are totally rumors, but we're hearing that they want to enlarge the place, enlarge a one-room, non-bedroom facility, as I mentioned. And we are very concerned that they're going to bring more people, sleep more people, and have no facilities, and keep this whole ball going. Because, again, you don't have any gray water capability, so they're bathing in the lake. They're using this holding tank. And so the state of New Hampshire Governor's Office forced the DES last month to go out and inspect the property. The DES went out and inspected the property, and I want to just mention, I got ahead of myself. 3 days before the DES went out to inspect the property, the owner got a hold of Kevin Beckett to go out and pump this holding tank. Kevin Beckett went out and pumped the holding tank, and a day or so after that, I called Kevin, and I said, what was the results of that tank? And he said, Mr. Bean, what we did is we found no effluent in the tank. we found something that was real hard. We had to pound on it with a hose, and when we started sucking up gravel, we shut the operation down because Scott Lamprey, who did the pumping, that's a no-no when you start sucking up gravel. And I said, well, Kevin, you are a state of New Hampshire certified septic installer. What is your prognosis? Or what's the deal? And he says, Mr. Bean, this tank is in default. This tank is basically said is junk. So I also know Scott Lamprey and have a lot of respect for him. So I called Scott up and I said, Scott, what is the situation here? And he says, Mr. Bean, he says, I am really upset that Kevin took my truck out there because it was not authorized to do this pumping. But I will tell you this. From my investigating of the situation, they should be over 500 gallons of effluent in that tank, and there isn't. The tank is in default, and it's garbage, and we both know this, but for some reason, nobody really cares. So, we then go to an attorney, and we say, what do we do? Because DES then comes to the island, they look at the tank and they go, tank's fine. And they ask the owner, gee, you know, your neighbor here is saying that you've been bathing. Right? This is 3 years, been bathing in the lake. Oh, he says, yeah, my nephew came out once and bathed in the lake and we told him never to do that again. Well, anybody has a common sense knows when people go out to an island like that and they stay multiple days with multiple people, they're going to be bathing. So regardless, they send a letter that basically stated that no problems. The island is, as far as they're concerned, DES is concerned, is in compliance. Even though now they have changed the terminology. This is no longer a holding tank or a grandfather holding tank, because the definition of a holding tank is it has to have water, and the island has no pressured water. So now they're calling it a cesspool/privy. Rainey Pelletier called me up and said, Doug, that is a privy. And I said, well, that privy is within 4.5 inches to the lake. 4.5 inches to the lake is where that privy is. So he says, well, I'm sorry, but it's a non-jurisdictional privy. And the state law states it has to be 75 feet from the shoreline to put in a privy. But this one was put in prior to 1969, so it's non-jurisdictional, it's out of our way. So we hired Aries, an environmental engineer that is very well established and has great credentials, he can speak for that, to investigate this because we wanted to get the facts to you gentlemen. We want to get the facts to the New Hampshire DES so we can figure out what needs to be done. And before, I know I've been kind of rambling, but before George Hoyt talks about this, my suggestion would be, and I don't think that there would be any issues or problems that the state or the town level would face, is to have a moratorium to any new building, any enlargement of buildings, to anything on that island until such times all the facts can be made on what's going on out there when you hear the results that Aries has come up with. I think that this is a responsible thing for both the town and the state to do, is to let us, because I'm paying for it, I shouldn't be, it's the New Hampshire State DES's job to enforce the water quality in this lake. But I'm paying for it because for some reason they don't want it. So I'm paying to have the testing done by a professional. And I do not want the place enlarged because it's going to bring more people onto that property to abuse and to use the property the way the property has not been defined and or permitted. And I'm calling for a moratorium by both the town and the state so we can present the facts and we can further give you people what you need, not my opinion. I've been living there a long time, I've watched this and I'm emotional about it, and I have opinions and you people do not want to, I'm sure, listen to opinions. You need facts in order to back up whatever you're gonna do. So that would be my plea to the town, is to give us time to be able to present you with the facts over and above what George is gonna present right now. Thank you very much.
George?
I would add to that, I have the report that we prepared and sent to Jack, and I'm sure you have a copy.
Could you give a copy to Karen?
There you go. I do have this. And Mr. Bean hired Aries to review the issue out there. After issuance of a June 26, 2018 letter by Kevin Cavaney from the DES. Just have a copy of that. And essentially, I can leave you this copy, but essentially the state punted on their, they came and did an inspection, but basically said as a result of their inspection, and that the state does not have pressurized, or the structure does not have pressurized water, the Subsurface Bureau does not require an application to be submitted for the Bureau. Basically says it's an unregulated tank. It's not that it says it's in compliance, it just says that they have no jurisdiction over this tank, which seems kind of at odds to a lot of their rules. So that precipitated Mr. Bean hiring us. Our charge was to go and test the water around the lake and around the island, looking for E. coli bacteria, similar to what he'd done before. And we submitted our results, and here's the locations of the samples. We had 4 samples around the lake, or around the septic tank. It's located on the plan, as well as a background off in distance. And at the end of our testing, we had a sort of distance concentration relationship provided in this chart here, showing that the concentrations of the E. coli were detected highest in closest proximity to the tank, and then tailed off at distance. 2 of the samples located closest to the tank had levels of total coliform bacteria that were above the reporting limit for the lab. They basically had too much bacteria in their petri dish to count. And those were located close enough. The E. coli bacteria concentrations are in the center, are approach the state guidance for when swimming areas should be shut down. So
They're half of that.
yeah, half of that, but
80s when they shut down, eggs are at
40.
one was at 40.
Right. And then on the average, there's a 3 sample geometric mean average. We had 33, and the state's action level is 47. So
You're just sampling anywhere else around the Cow Island mainland?
no, and the, as we said in our report, that there are a lot of different sources of bacteria out there. And to do a real study on this would require a lot more sampling. We talked about that, about doing that. I think it would be helpful to identify if there are other issues out there that are contributing to this, but the first pass of data suggests that there is a correlation between the bacteria concentrations and the tank proximity. So the important part here is the state says this is a holding tank. Holding tank implies watertight that contains all the effluent and gets pumped off. And the state is, in their most recent correspondence, said that if that's the case, it's not in their purview. We're contending that this tank has failed, or it was never designed as a holding tank, but is actually a just simple gray water system. And that's the reason why we're not seeing any effluent build up in that, and why there's gravel in that base. So our recommendation is, instead of doing a lot more testing
let's get to the point of the bottom of the issue here is this a tank or not? If you were to either do dye testing or simply pump in 100 gallons of water from the lake and monitor the level in the tank, if it holds, it's a holding tank. But if it goes through and leaches out, then it's not a holding tank. And then there are other state criteria then that fall in play if it's not a holding tank. Location of septic systems relative in the wetland shoreline protection district, buffer zone, and all that come into play. And there's a lot of various rules that describe that you're not allowed to have an expansion of use in that zone. So that's sort of the short 2-second version. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm sure you have one.
Oh, no, I'm gonna, I met with Kevin last Friday for an hour and a half.
Okay.
So.
All right, Kevin.
And you met with, who was this?
Kevin.
He's the author of this letter.
He's the compliance officer
Yep.
for the state,
Okay.
DES. So the owners of Windswept Island are willing to change the tank, increase its size, guaranteed waterproof tank, which is fine. And then based on Erie's letter, I did some research around the island, researched some septic systems around the island. I come up with 6 from the point off Idlewild, which is on kind of the same plane as Windswept,
We're on here.
all the way to inside Echo Island. I researched all these properties, came up with 6 that weren't in compliance with this septic. Mr. Bean is one of those. Okay, his septic is for a 4-bedroom dwelling with a bunkhouse with no plumbing. On our tax card, his bunkhouse has 3 bedrooms and a bathroom. So that was done without any permitting, which is in general vicinity of Windswept Island on the water side. As well as 2 doors down, there's one where there's no approval for operation, they can't prove that the septic system was installed. One down here, there's no septic system whatsoever. Going the other direction is one septic with a bedroom count doesn't match what's in the ground. Further on down, there's 2 houses that are 5-bedroom with no approval for operation. So, all these people got letters last week, so they were receiving these. So that was my research. And then when I met with the state, here's the one that went to you. He said they're willing to do a complete watertight tank. They'll allow him to install it because it's grandfathered because it was installed pre-67. They have no pressurized water. They don't have to install a septic. That's my research so far.
And in fact, probably based upon the size of the property, it might not be feasible to put a septic in on this.
They wouldn't get a septic on that island at all, no. But a holding tank, like I say, it's grandfathered in, so, and they're willing to add a couple hundred gallons to it, so it'll probably be 500 gallons. It's approximately 300 gallons now. The state had, they had taken pictures of it, which I have, of the tank, and so they're willing to increase the size to complete watertight.
Are there any permits for building?
No, there's some for building. No, on the Windswept Island, there is none.
On
No,
Windswept Island?
no, nothing.
Was the,
They had a permit way back when with a previous owner for a deck, and they got that, and they got a variance to get it.
Okay.
There's
There's
deck
no,
right out
there's
to the
no
water.
current,
Well, the deck that's to the water is a dock, and that was permitted by the state years ago. And there's a deck behind that privacy screening that they got a variance for.
Is that before your arrival?
No, I
Remember?
Yeah.
but there's no current.
There's no current building permit application or anything in it that I have.
In the Tufton Rose records, do you have that it's a 1-bedroom or no bedroom facility?
It doesn't say anything about bedrooms.
Okay.
Can I just make a comment regarding his assertions regarding my property? Last week, I had Rowell, septic come out, do an inspection of my tank, my pump, the entire system. Everything is, and I would have had a letter today, but they didn't have a chance, is in 100% mint condition. There's no leakage, everything is perfect. And when we added the existing dwelling, we called Ames and told them that we wanted because we've only got 4 bedrooms between the 2 places, if we could do what we did, and he said yes. So I will call David Ames and we'll get that corrected, because I do not want to have any issues, because I don't want to have any issues with the department.
I have a building permit for a bunkhouse that shows 1 room.
The permit only shows
The
1 room?
permit shows 1 room, and there's a separate design for your property, has a bunkhouse with no permit.
Sorry.
So there should have been building permits taken out as well as a new septic put in to increase the use of it.
For the record, who is this Ames?
David Ames was the guy who designed my septic system.
So do we have a application in?
Not for Windsor Power, we do not.
None.
Nothing.
Okay.
But I will handle this, and I will get this taken care of, because again, I've done.
See, it's other ones, I went both ways on the same plane because current's traveling,
Right,
trying to figure out where bacteria issues can be, so everybody's getting informed of this.
right.
I know, it looks bigger than
All right, so,
1 room. I remember going out.
It's like 1 room.
yeah, so we have questions about the integrity of the tank.
Correct, and they're
You've got a
willing to put
property
a
owner
tank, and the
that's-
state's allowing it to go, because the one's there
That's-
is grandfathered.
Yeah.
And they do not dump water in it, so how it's used, it could dry up.
Mhm.
They don't chase it with water because it's not a toilet with a tank on it, they dump in the tank and it flushes. It's pretty much,
So what do they do with their gray
It's,
water?
it's an outhouse.
what do they do with their gray water? What do they have for gray water?
I don't know.
That's the thing, you have to prove they produce gray water.
If they live out there and they wash their dishes, they don't have dishes.
Maybe
out
they use paper, I don't know, I haven't been
I don't
out
know.
there, so they
It
don't
just seems
necessarily,
like
you know,
If it's a habitable,
they have no sink.
you know, according to,
Sir, not to interrupt you, I was a prosecutor for my police department. And there were some things that, from my experience in court, and it has no bearing on this here, in order for me to go forward to prosecute a case, I have to prove that you did something purposely, knowingly, recklessly, or negligently. And that's just to clear up a point here. And, when he says you have to prove it, actually, whoever goes forward has to prove it. And that's not to throw a stumbling block here, it's just, you know, those are your rights, that's their rights. Thank you.
They've asked me before about expanding this, and I said, we have to figure out what's happening with the waste.
the,
And that was my answer to the Nortons probably 2 years ago, and nothing's happened since.
I mean, I think it reminds me of a boat.
yeah,
It'd be no difference if they had a gas-fired toilet, which are totally allowed.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have a septic system because there's no pressurized water.
And
That's the issue.
On the one hand, this overarching desire to have absolute free reign over our lives and our property. But the minute it seems to have some impact, we have to regulate. And we haven't gotten to the point here where we're closing down the lake for swimming.
right, no, for sure.
So I think we're sort of limited. I mean, I think the idea of testing is a wonderful idea.
There's another positive, Chip, and that is we have, it appears to me, 2 landowners within 35 feet of each other, that my sense is they are willing to do what's in the letter and the spirit of the law, and that's refreshing.
I don't know.
You know, I don't think we
I
have.
can't speak to whether or not they'll ever get along.
Yeah.
But I think what we need to make sure of is that the lake's not get polluted,
Yep,
and that the people out there have got some direction as to what they can do with their, I mean, they don't want to compost, I would think that would be the.
Compost, you have to haul off a tank, you pump out, so it's,
Yeah.
I gave, composting toilet and Sunlight gas fired because there's no power there, they have to run a generator. So there's options
Get
for
a
waste.
solar panel
But
a lot of that.
they don't put up, it takes a long cycle for electric toilet to burn out, but.
So for somebody to get a certificate of occupancy in
Mhm.
town, what are the requirements? That they have an on-site waste system?
If they have pressurized water.
So if they don't have pressurized water, there's no
No,
requirement?
it's just the safety issues. If there's no pressurized water, they don't require a septic system. That's in the state rules, you can go look them right up.
About the health issues.
Yeah, and what about disposal of gray water?
Disposal of waste would be, there's no gray water if there's no pressurized water. correct?
I would think not.
Correct. So if no pressurized water, there's no gray water. Waste, the grandfather with a holding tank, well, they're calling it privy now, which privies are still allowed.
And it's
But
just-
not in that space.
It's grandfathered, so in that case it is.
Well, it's allowed as long as it's functioning properly.
Correct.
And it's
And that's
not.
what
So
I think,
re-
I
so
think that's what
replacement,
we're limited.
replacement
Correct.
of this tank with a
Correct.
new
Should solve
tank
the-
that's.
With a new
that's-
tank,
Should take care of the
As long as it's-
question
as long
about
as
the
it's a
issue of,
proof tank, water, not waterproof, but I guess it's waterproof tank, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, maybe fiberglass
Yeah.
would be better than steel too.
so replacement of that existing tank that may or may not be leaching out through the bottom with a new holding tank built to whatever the
Right, whatever would fit in the space it's in.
the specification is,
And the one that's there now is
Should
approximately
some-
300 something gallons based on its size.
should solve the question of material
Correct.
leaving the tank other than by being pumped out.
Correct.
It's not gonna address an issue of people peeing when they're in the lake, okay?
Correct.
Which,
It's
Well,
on
don't think
cable,
you ever-
we're
huh?
fine. We're on
Right.
cable, we don't have to worry about that shit.
Right. Or other ways that contaminants get into the lake, but it does address the issue of this stuff leaking out the bottom of this and finding its way into the lake.
Correct.
Mr. Bean?
That addresses that problem, but the next problem is taking it one step further, because I know these people, and I've seen it, I've been there, I've watched it. And when you see 8 people show up and stay for multiple days in a one-room cabin, you know what I'm talking about when I say, then the next question is, will this allow the expansion, the increased volume of that building, and so they can bring more people in? I don't care how big your septic, I think it's great that we can take care of that problem, but then the next problem is allowing that place to be expanded, in which the state definitely said that they couldn't do, otherwise we would have bought the property. So, is that now something
How
that,
does the state weigh in on
The
whether?
state can't weigh in on that, so.
Whether or not you can
I've
purchase.
asked the question twice and they have
Yeah.
no jurisdiction on that whatsoever.
you know,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
the free use of your personal property is,
Protected.
it's,
Jerk hurdle.
it's the dogma of New Hampshire, if
Well,
nothing else.
You know, and of course, you identified yourself earlier that over the years, you've expanded your space to expand your family and accommodate them all on the property.
right.
And, I mean, I don't know what, there's some
And-
upper limit, I
The
think.
system is that if you accumulate assets enough to buy property on the lake, then you're gonna protect the asset that you have on the lake. So perhaps these people, and I have no idea what they spent on it, but it's certainly easy to find out, are not gonna squander that asset. I mean, that's, I guess, the check and balance, if you will, on our particular system. So I'm a little disinclined to think that they're gonna destroy everything on Windswept Island, because what benefit would inure to them by doing that? I mean, are they just, or did they inherit all this money and bought an island and?
I don't know what they're doing, I mean, like I said, it went from day use now to, they want to turn the place into a full-time overnight. And again, if you go out there and you look and see, it's a pile of rock, it's as big as this table, or as big as this room. This room is this big on a pile of rock. It has no leaching capability. You put a holding tank in, then that solves one of the problems. My question is there are certain statutes that have been put in place, either by the town or by the state, regarding the increasing of a building. And I've had to live with them, because I'm in the construction business, that you can't make a non-conforming structure more non-conforming. So if this is a non-conforming structure, which everybody's agreed to, why would you allow it to be more non-conforming? That's what I'm saying.
That would require
It's
the
not a
expansion,
non-conforming structure.
but it would require the expansion of the building. That's what we can control. That's what our building codes.
Footprint only.
that's what our.
That requires a variance for a
Right.
footprint, and they got a variance for a deck.
Okay, but that's what our building codes
Right.
enforcement officer can do. The use of the structure for,
Well, the zoning board can regulate that, I can't regulate
yeah,
that. so.
is a residential use. I mean, I don't know, unless they're doing something outside the scope of residential use.
Correct.
I don't think I know we don't have any statute or regulation.
And the shoreland rules prevent expansion of the footprint,
Correct.
Right?
so.
Yeah, they don't. the
Well, they have to get a
shoreline
variance
protection-
from the state as well as the town.
Yeah.
To enlarge the place to go up?
No, not.
On the
to-
same footprint?
No, to go out, different footprint.
The
use,
the up
variance
is, the up is
shoreline.
limited as well, to a certain extent.
Yeah, 35 feet, yeah.
Is it 35 on the islands?
It's 35 in town, yeah.
Okay.
The, however, when you add an additional bedroom, presumably that would be an expansion of use, which is,
It's an expansion of use, correct.
right, which
It's not
is,
expansion of footprint, it's expansion of use.
right, which is what the
Right,
shoreline protection rules talk about too.
right, but not only in footprint, not on shoreline.
No,
Only in footprint.
if you add bedrooms, it's a different story.
That's not a shoreline issue, that's a septic issue. But if there's no pressurized water, there's no septic issue.
And we're-
I spent an hour and a half. I went up and down and both ways and back ways and
But we're not presented with
That's what I
a
got.
building application.
nothing.
I mean, I don't want to
No.
preempt anything.
No, we have nothing.
If they haven't
I
applied.
had a
for-
question a couple of years back and they said, we gotta figure out what's happening with the waste.
In saying that, we've been told that even though I'm a blink of an eye from that property, that I have no abutting rights because it is an island, therefore it has no abutters. And that doesn't sit very well with me because I am an abutter. It's probably closer to 45 feet if you really measured it, but you know, it's within 50 feet of that property. And so, and I don't know, that's your regulation that states that an island doesn't have any abutters, and because of that, there's no necessary to notify me of a variance or any kind of expansion or whatever. And I'd like to be able to, at this point, ask the selectmen if that can be waived in this case because of the circumstances that we've been involved in.
I think all of our variances are noticed publicly. The hearings
So, yeah.
are
Yeah.
all noticed publicly.
All
What everybody's asking, I think, is if he gets a certified letter saying, here's, this is coming up on the agenda. So he doesn't have to.
The only caveat I'll put to that is that Mr. Bean has eloquently made his position before us today. He did a great job. But in every situation, there are two sides. We have yet to have a presentation by the other side. And I think that's, if not just fair, it's reasonable to at least hear what that direction is or where their intentions are, and give them as much time as we've given Mr. Bean.
Absolutely.
And I think we can all come to some sort of a arrangement. If it requires a variance, then we have to ask the zoning board of adjustment if they will consider Mr. Bean's application for a.
Yeah, it's only,
Letter
they're only gonna need a variance if the footprint changes.
Right. Right, but they may need, I mean, I suppose the state's gonna wanna have a shoreline protection.
If it doesn't impact the footprint or the ground.
At any rate, we'll do the best we can, but I have to preface that by saying, we're gonna give everybody a fair hearing.
That's what I asked for in my presentation. I think that we should have a moratorium so everybody can hear the facts, and then we can sit down and come up with a solution. Because again, you know, this is a situation where we're all trying to maintain the quality of Lake Winnipesaukee, so we can, I used to drink out of it, but we can't do that anymore. I just as soon not boil my water before I have to wash my vegetables. And that's what I'm being told that I have to do now. So I would like to get to a point where we all sit together and figure out what is happening on that island. And if there is an issue, correct it. Now, if that is a leaking tank, then that poses another issue for me because pollutants stay in the ground for quite some time. And I know that gasoline stations and stuff have to come in and they have to get rid of all those pollutants in the soil because they still keep coming out. And if this is a tank that has allowed seepage into the ground, I think that's a whole nother thing. And I think by testing it with dyes and stuff, that's going to answer a lot of these questions, and that's what I'm asking for. I'm not asking for any resolutions at this point. I'm just asking if we can get all the facts and present them to the New Hampshire DES and to you people, so everybody can come up with an intelligent answer, because this affects me, yes, big time. My property value, what I have done, there's no question. Okay, and if that property is polluting, then my property value is affected, there's no question. And that's a personal thing, you know, I understand. But it's just something that all of us should be as concerned about as I am, you know, and wanting to make sure that the right things are done with this property.
And I think that
Not only
the
with this
tank,
property, but with all properties in
Yep.
town.
Right.
So,
No, I think it pushed Jack a little bit to check out all the rest of it. I mean, we need to know what's going on out there. I'm a little less concerned with industrial pollution on Windswept Island, because probably 99% of what's going in that tank is human excrement, which isn't the chemical polluter that, let's say, dry cleaning fluids are. So I think.
right.
Yeah,
It doesn't have the persistence in the environment.
Doesn't make it great, but it's
Right.
a little.
Right.
but I think the
It does break
tank will
down.
go a long way to mitigate that.
Yeah.
So there's no future abuse, and
Right.
the remnant, if it's there.
But I think changing up the tank, and are the folks willing to do that, or are they talking?
I was
about-
told by Kevin that they were willing to do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I think that's a
So
good
that's-
first step,
Absolutely.
along with the testing. And we'll figure out what's going on.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for
coming in.
Thank you.
See ya.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you in person.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay.
Have a great summer, what's left of it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Jack.
Yep. All right.
Thank you.
So, all right. Road agent,
I had a message from him that he's not coming.
he's not coming in?
Excuse me?
I had a message from him that he's not coming. I just went and checked.
Is it dismissing us out of hand, or does he have a reason?
No, he's sick. He's had a toothache. He's had a bad toothache.
Okay,
All right.
all right. Let's move on to Selectmen's update.
Go ahead.
Lloyd?
Well, I'm gonna deal with the road agent. There's a couple of projects, big ones, that are in the works, and should we have a meeting with him this week on Friday?
I'm not here Friday.
Is there another day?
You're gone today.
I'm gone through Friday evening. I'm gone the rest of the week.
Next Monday, we're meeting.
So we are meeting next Monday,
Let's put 'em on
regular
there.
meeting. Put 'em- I think we put them on the,
We'll send the
schedule for
town
Monday morning.
ambulance if we have to.
yep,
That's what we have them for, right?
right.
Well, I'll continue.
Can't do private transport.
Well, we'll make an exception. We'll get them through training this week.
Karen,
Yes.
with the chairman's permission, would you send a message to Jim that since Sodom Road Bridge is done, that the 3 signs that say that...
Actually, that's an issue for us to deal with this
Yeah.
morning, as to how we want to proceed. And
Is
so,
it done?
Yes.
yeah, they opened it on Friday. No,
Okay.
Okay, I'll hold off for that.
yeah.
Or do we want to do it now?
No, well, let's deal with it now. Actually, I had a note this morning from Karen, kind of recapping this. So, where did that go? All right. Sodom Road bridge work is complete and the road is open. HEB will send a letter to the DOT advising them that the weight limit can be removed. Town doesn't have to wait for DOT to respond. DOT can only suggest weight limit postings for the town. So we can go ahead and lift the weight limit, or HEB is happy to issue a letter of completion to us saying that it's back to full limit, which would be what I would suggest, is that we await a letter from HEB, and at that point, we remove the weight limit. And we
No
could,
problem.
in which case, I'm sure we could act on it next Monday.
Right.
If you two want to go ahead and do it today, that's all right. I
Well,
mean,
no,
it's just,
we need to get HEB's letter before we can finalize the project and pay the bills and do all the rest of it.
that's my opinion as well.
Let's wait until HEB.
I'm thinking of the vendors, that's the busiest street in town, but I'll defer to your.
Well, as long as the road is open. But you're
Right.
thinking of the weight limitation.
That's
Yeah,
right.
so we've got another week with weight limitation.
I'll defer to your majority.
Yeah, I'm fine with waiting until Monday, that's fine. They'll probably enjoy the drive.
So, anyway, Karen, if you could let Chris know if they could send us a letter this week, that'd be great.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Is it premature to pay the bill
Yeah.
until they're,
Right. Anything else?
no.
I'm good.
The only thing that I wanted to touch on is when we last met, we anticipated that the Islanders were going to be having their meeting
Right.
that weekend. And we, subsequent to that, found out that what they were trying to arrange as the program speaker to come didn't work for that weekend, and so they canceled the meeting and or postponed it. They're trying to schedule something later in the summer, but we haven't heard anything at this point with respect to that. So, all right, let's move on. Other correspondence. So, this is a follow-up from our last meeting with respect to 4 policies for the New Hampshire Municipal Association's Policy Conference. I looked through what's here, and it all seems reasonable to me. I didn't come up with any, did you have a chance to?
I kind of skimmed through it.
You know,
That's just recommendations.
it's basically a solicitation, okay? Saying, we've got our conference coming up in September to put these policies together. Here are ones we're working on already. Does anybody have anything else beyond that that they want to add? And I guess I'm not that imaginative. I haven't come up with anything.
No.
But we have an opportunity for another couple of weeks. If we have something we want to add, that we can do that.
Yeah, my personal property isn't being impacted, so I'm not really interested in
Exactly.
over-regulating everybody else.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. There we go. Okay. We've all seen the reports, the field reports on the Sodom Road Bridge work.
Yes, can I make a comment on that? And it's just informational. One of the things I learned from the people who are working there is there's that much pavement. And I never thought of it, but the 3 bridges in town, we've paved roads in the last 40 years, we've just paved over. They recommended that when you grind the road, you do the same there. I'm wondering if it'd be appropriate to speak with Piper or HEB or something. Is that something we should be doing to the other bridges in town, and it'd be a special warrant article?
Well, I mean, typically when you, even when I observe road paving work that gets done, if you don't grind the pavement and you just overlay, you typically grind a bridge. So don't keep adding weight to the top of the bridge. And so if we haven't been doing that, that's something we ought to be doing as we go through the process. So,
I put that on my wish list.
yeah, Okay.
Thank you.
So we have a suggested revisions to the town facility closing policy that
Is this storm policy?
this, the two revisions have to do with the beach and the aquatic
I
directives.
do have something to report, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so you've been involved in this, maybe you can speak to that.
One of the things that, I don't know if I can speak to this because I haven't read it yet, but I think it has to do with what I had been talking to them about, which we talked about last meeting, which was the lifeguards who got the summer to make their money to go to school
Yes.
or whatever they're doing, have asked to be paid if they get shut out for a rain day. And I think we talked about this last week, and I sort of made a decision for us based on that conversation. But that's fine, provided that if there's no lifeguard, say on Friday, that if they've gotten a rain day, they come in and work on that Friday. So I've asked the director of Parks and Rec, Gina, to put that program together. So we're getting the same amount, actually getting more coverage because we're missing the rain days, but actually the same coverage. And it enables these kids to depend upon the wage that they're gonna make for the summer. So I don't think it wasn't a budget issue because the money's budgeted already, but it was more a time management issue, which hopefully they'll put together. That's unreasonable.
Yep.
We do have a policy, our people, if they're en route and then get sent home because of bad weather, we pay them for their normal shift. And I have no problem
That's a
with it.
different, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not as if we're creating a deal
Exactly.
here. But I think it's,
Yeah.
having had a summer job
Yeah.
from time to time
Yes.
as a child.
Right.
I've had compliments about
From my summer job.
their professionalism of the staff, the swim team. So,
So,
do you recommend?
I'll make a motion that we accept these changes.
all right, if you had a chance to review them?
Yes, I
before?
did. I
Okay,
have no problem with second.
all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
What do you want?
Yes.
My question is, the second part of that is,
Yeah,
yeah, can that
Yeah.
be incorporated into
Yes.
the personnel policy as
we
well?
just approved,
Yep.
yeah,
Oh, that's the closing, they're separated, that's
the
why.
closing policy.
It's completely separate at this time from the personnel policy. So, which is what you're looking at, the closing policy right there?
Right?
So
Okay.
is it okay to
So-
put that right into a section of the personnel policy so things aren't separate?
I have no problem
Yeah.
with it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
Does
thank
they
you.
have to have a hearing or anything when we add to the personnel policy?
We haven't done it, do we have a hearing?
Uh,
Oh,
yeah, no,
I'm just asking
I-
a question, I don't think so.
I don't think so. Have a report here from Clay on the Island Day collection last Saturday. Serviced approximately 25 boats full of debris, enough debris to fill up one 30-yard container, 3 dump trucks, and 1 dump truck hauling a flatbed auto trailer with high siding. Revenue for the morning was $430. Expense will be approximately $650, loaders and haulers. Tuftonboro Development supplied the vehicles and motors. So, you want to elaborate on that?
Nope, that's pretty great weather.
Yep.
More scrap metalish, weird type stuff than I've ever seen.
Well, it's not being dumped around the lake or a bad
Right.
road, so.
It's amazing how much of this stuff accumulates out on the islands. isn't it?
Yeah. Again, the only glitch was when we got down there, they dumped the container off Friday. The door was open and it was already a quarter full. Which, you know, we have to walk in and hand pack that because we don't have a backhoe
Right.
to, you know, so it was a little bit frustrating that I can't get them to bring it in the morning on Saturday and pick it up at noon on Saturday. So, but it was really nice weather, a lot of people, and they were very thankful. They sent a couple emails of
Yep, yep.
thank you.
We do have some further correspondence thanking you and the crew for setting that up and running it. And in my view, it's a great thing, because if we don't facilitate getting this stuff,
Like ends up in the lake.
yeah, it ends up in the lake or just.
Well, and we got,
Someplace.
Waste Management did the same thing, they donated, so kudos to Waste Management. They
Yep.
donated the container and transportation, so it makes it economically feasible to do.
Yep.
They picked it up yet?
Not yet, they're supposed to pick up this morning.
Yep.
I'm sure there'll be crap all around.
Okay. Note here with respect to Norma Ozier's passing. Family asked for donations to the HPH Hospice, which I believe is where she was cared for in Florida. And do we want to make a donation on behalf of the town?
I don't know if we can, actually. I think we should encourage that. We should encourage donations. But did Norma serve on the board or? Oh, yeah.
I'd like to think about it and do a
Yeah.
little research.
All right.
My condolences go out to Jim Bean and his family, but
Yeah, and mine as well.
She wasn't, as far as I know, a former official or,
Right, so I think we're kind of limited in that regard.
okay?
let me research it, okay?
All right.
Yeah.
Boston Post cane. It appears that,
Is Chip up there yet?
Nobody's old enough.
yeah, Alden Ringer is the
Alden Ringer?
next eligible recipient for the cane. So,
Is he in a nursing home?
I don't think so.
Or is
No,
he?
he's not.
And how old is he?
He was born in 1922, so.
96. 96.
Yeah.
My father's birthday is
Yep.
today, and he was born in 23, it would have been 95, so.
Yeah. So,
God, it barely seems old enough.
and Karen has suggested that we invite him to the meeting on the 13th, which I think is great, or we can find a time to go out and present it to him in person.
Do you need a motion?
Sure.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you for getting the list.
Yep.
No problem, and that was to invite him here, is that what the
We
decision
will,
was?
but
Yes,
if he
or-
can't come, we can go to him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if he would rather that we do
We'll
it
take a reporter and
at his,
videographer.
all that good stuff.
He's right next to the culvert?
Pardon me?
Does he live right next to the culvert on Brown Road?
I have no idea.
I think he's the opposite side of the stone wall.
Oh, could be.
Is that
Okay.
R-I-N-G-E-R?
Yep, Alden Ringer, R-A-N-G-E-R. All right.
Huh.
Do we have any other business?
Yes.
Public comment.
I forgot to go on the record, Corey Hunter and his crew have done a nice job around here, their annual pruning of all the bushes. And I noticed that a large tree limb has come down at the Gould property, and I'm thinking that we have the old home days. Karen, could you contact Corey Hunter and see if he could take that limb down? He mows up there as it is.
And that's the Gould property? Okay.
So two things with him. Okay.
Clay, at our last meeting, we talked about adjusting the schedule for disposal.
Nothing needs to be changed on the usage fee chart.
Right.
Needs to be changed is our view of specific trails
Okay, so,
and pricing. And I haven't, it's not done paper-wise yet. I'll have it very soon.
okay, so you're not suggesting that we increase what we charge?
Correct. There will be a better evaluation of what's in the trailer and the weight and adjusting the charge accordingly.
So you were here for the lady who testified about the pop shop.
Just to set the record clear, okay? okay? No one has ever volunteered
At
to
any rate.
do anything at any time, assist in any way whatsoever at the swap shop.
If you could just, next time you come, put together a statement of the swap shop, what you feel is an appropriate time to hold stuff, or if you want to get rid of the whole thing, or whatever it is.
We're gonna clean it when it is unsafe.
Right.
The whole issue is, I've got 3 people. Each one of those people have 10 to 12 things that they have to do in a time frame that's not schedulable. It's, you gotta be proactive, you gotta move from one thing to another.
You gotta respond.
To keep up with the show. When the time comes to clean the swap shop, and it's available to clean the swap shop, and you got 2 people, one to operate the machine, the other to be kind of a lookout and a safety monitor, and load the machine and get it over to the CD when we're not busy, that's when we're gonna do it. And when we clean it, we clean it. It has to be safe, it has to be clean, it has to be organized, so people don't get hurt.
And it
That's what we're gonna
would be great if everything that has some value,
Well,
there was room for it until it got picked up, but we only have a finite amount of room in that.
And it's very small, and it gives it very, we've taken 7 bucket loads out of there first thing in the morning. You know, 7 bucket loads, because there's so much stuff. And the guys, through their experience, you know, this'll go, this'll go, this'll go, this'll go, and this is junk. And it's gonna sit here and keep it cluttered. And, you know, they do a very good job at being efficient in doing it, so.
Well, I, just speaking from a recent occurrence, not at the swap shop, but for instance, we had the fair auction
Right.
at the Melvin Church on Saturday.
Right.
We got tables and tables of stuff set up, flea market kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, whatever's left, we have a roll-off container and it all goes in there. And
That's right.
I mean, there's glassware and all kinds of stuff that
Absolutely.
can be of value, but it's just in excess of the market.
Well,
And you-
trust
you
me, I
can't
get
leave it
pickup.
forever.
I get pickup trucks. We have a consignment shop in town.
Yeah,
If you're that, you know, you wanna be that specific and that, go to the consignment shop, stay out of the swap shop.
well, and
My opinion.
I will tell you that the various agencies that take this stuff get overwhelmed if you try it. We have the same situation right now with leftover
Right.
clothing from the boutique. There's not, with what's left, there is not one agency that will take all of it.
Right.
It's way more than they can handle. I said, well, you know, we can take a dozen bags, you know, and so we have 8 dozen bags full of clothing that are left, and we find a place for it to go, but
And the signs, we put signs up, the signs get blown off the building every single time we try to put them up. And it's tearing holes in the corrugation there. It is so windy up there, the doors are bent because of the wind. There is written on the inside, on the wall, no electronics, nothing that plugs in. There's no mattresses, no car seats for kids, nothing with fabric because of bed bugs. All that stuff still applies.
No tanks that go on the grills.
Yeah, I mean, I took, this is how bad, and, you know, I don't normally do this, but I knew this was gonna be an issue, okay? Pictures do 1,000 words, and this is after our guys went in there to clean, okay? That is a desk. The desk has a top on it. It has a top, it has 2 drawers, one side, the other side's gone, and people snuck the desk in and put it in the middle of the floor amongst all the other stuff for us to take care of because they didn't want to pay $5 to get the desk taken out. That's a desk. It won't stand up, I mean, it's missing the whole end.
In Scotland, they don't let you take food waste.
Right, and, you know, when we clean it out,
So-
when we clean it out, you know, they'll go through and they'll say, well, that's in good condition, that's in good condition, and they leave that, you know, and so when they're done cleaning, there's a few items that are still there, but the majority of the clutter and the junk is taken out, because if somebody drives in a pickup, they wanna feel like they're doing a good thing. If I had a guy go up and say, oh, that's all junk, dump it, then they're gonna be in here complaining that we're not allowing them to put stuff in the swap shop.
Well, we've talked before about an effective way to have a swap shop work, and what I'm familiar with in other towns is one that is manned with people, and typically it's volunteers, and that's, it's only open when they're there, so you have somebody that is making sure that stuff, that electronics, that sort of stuff doesn't get dumped there.
Correct.
And keeps it organized, and we had, at one time in this town, somebody who was dedicated to that, and she moved out of town.
Right.
So,
Would it be effective to just eliminate the fees?
Eliminate the fees.
Okay, so I bring a desk up, like the desk you just showed us, and your position is that I'm sneaking it into the swap shop, so I don't have to pay $5.
Correct.
Well, if I didn't have to pay the $5, would I have put it in the dumpster? So, how much money are we spending on labor cleaning the swap shop out of stuff that we could maybe allocate somewhere else by not charging to put a mat?
And then you're basically doing the same thing as you're taking the expense that one person has and spreading it out over all the residents. Because
But you're
tax
doing
dollars
that
are
now.
not, no, because we're charging for it.
No, you're doing that now, and the fact that you're
If he gets away with
taking
putting it
employees' time and labor cost and dedicated it to those people who bring things into the swap shop.
I've got the answer for you.
Yeah.
5 buckets a day during the summer is fairly normal out of there. Yes. No,
2 tons.
That's right. At $115 per ton, that's between $345 and $575 of missed fees. Now, during the winter months, it's less than that. So I took the lower figure, okay, of, let's say there were 3 buckets a day, times 4 days, times 52 weeks. That's $71,760 of missed fees.
And we should eliminate the swap shop altogether.
I could justify doing away with it. However, I go up and use it, and I ask Barry, what should I put in here? And he says, end tables go quickly. So I put 6 end tables there. I had 6 chairs, you know, the wooden chairs. He says, they just don't go, Lloyd, like
Well,
that.
yeah.
And he charged me $30 to get rid of them. I mean, it's so easy to use the facility and keep it open and all that. So I'm torn, but I'm drifting more and more and more to do what Conway has done, and I can list the other towns. No, we're closing it. It's just, I mean, I personally, this year, have heard 3 people that have spoken to his employees, and we don't pay them enough to listen to the crap they took.
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question.
Well, I want to be the friendly place to come to, you know. That's an exception to the standard. We don't deal with that a lot, but we've had 1 or 2 or 3 individuals that.
Then let's put together something for, you know, maybe we need to reach out to volunteers. She said there's 100 people who want to volunteer. Have them come forward. I mean, it just seems like a struggle, and I have lots of other struggles.
Most of the towns, to be truthfully honest, most of the towns have gone like Marlboro. You know, they have some books in a room. They have a couple of bookshelves, and you can put some paperback books there. And the rest of the stuff goes to their consignment shop down on the main street there. You know, if we were to do, you know, I don't know, I'm torn. I think the swap shop has good things, and you know, I'd rather have something reused. A lot of times somebody comes over with something that's gonna go on the construction debris container, and I haven't put them on the asphalt there. So if anybody comes in and says, hey, can I have that desk? Can I have that chair? Yeah, go ahead and take it. I'd rather see it be reused than throw it away and pay to have it thrown away. We do the same thing in the metal pile. All of the exercise equipment, you know. Is it working order? Yeah, it's in working order. Okay, put it down by the metal pile, put it over on the side. If somebody wants it, they can take it.
The other thing that you do is when someone, and I've seen you and your crew do this, they come in with a bedroom set or something like this, minus the mattresses. You have them pay for it, and if it disappears, you give them their money back.
Well, we do that with overstuffed chairs, the big bulky items that are going to take up a lot of room in construction debris. A lot of times, you know, that would cost $5 to get rid of. We'll put them on the bottom of the cash drawer. Wait a week. If it's gone, we get $5 back. If it's not, we turn it in. So
he and his crew are showing a lot of courtesy.
Well, on the other, then looking at it from the other direction, if we could save $40,000 worth of expense in transporting waste to waste management by reusing stuff, do we put a,
well, exactly. You don't know how much stuff has been taken out of there.
but do you put a $30,000 employee in there running a swap shop?
And that's where every time he's asked for, you know, Mayberry full-time, he did a white paper on how long it will take with paying him the benefits, and, you know, that worked out. He's gone with per diem people for the other thing, and it's worked out as your guys take vacation and whatnot. It's working.
Just, you know,
My feeling is if the town wants to put an employee running the swap shop, then that's what we'll do. But we need to identify what that cost is. It will increase the manning at the transfer station. By how much, I don't know.
And if it cuts Lloyd's $71,000 cost in half, then you pay for the employee.
Yep.
well,
So I think we need to look at that. I mean, if you're actually putting $30,000 worth of,
I could say the same thing for every specific function that we have at the transfer station. Do we have somebody sitting in the compactor booth the entire 9 hours we're open? No. Do we have somebody standing in the scrap metal pile for the entire 9 hours we're open? No. On the brush hill, how many people sneak in and dump brush without paying? Do we have somebody
do we have to
standing
pay
up
for
there?
brush?
Yes, for brush. For
Not
leaves.
one of those sneaking in.
For leaves and grass, we don't.
As I've toured other
For every function in the facility, we can say the same thing.
it's cost effective.
That's why we have 3 people.
But the
that-
only feature of your facility that causes this much dialogue is the swap shop.
It's only.
So I think you need
it's
a
only-
monitor.
It's only onesies and twosies. It's less than 0.01% of the population. Just because they speak the loudest doesn't necessarily mean. I think 95% of the people are totally satisfied with the swap shop up there. And I think you're gonna find it would be, if you were taking a percentage of the people that use that, 1%.
One of the things that Clay,
We should make a warrant article about the swap shop.
Yeah, exactly.
Vote on that.
one of the things that Clay and I investigated or saw, we went to Molten Borough, and the guy who runs the swap shop with books, just a few items, when he's not talking, first of all, he's per diem. There's 2 of them that do it. And while he's not talking to people, there's a wire stripper where he's stripping the plastic off the wire. And that's free money for them.
You get the most effective use of their
You
time.
do the same thing. You have a ton of it now where you chop the wire up and they're going to hiding metals.
And the bottom, to me, the bottom line is the swap shop is got nothing to do with tax dollars or labor or anything else. We're doing it as a service, just like we provide the contractors with a 30-day line of credit. Okay, we could be like every other facility and say, no, you have to have cash and check every time you come in the door. Okay, or you can't dump here. But for the guys that come in 2-3 times a week, yeah, we write it down, we put it on the computer, it doesn't take two seconds, but you don't have a dedicated labor spot to that. Swap shop, there's no tax dollars. I mean, it's again, it's like talking about stickers. I can't believe we spend so much time on a $4 sticker or a $5 sticker when there's really no tax dollars related to it.
I don't believe we should charge for stickers, but that's just
Yeah.
my position.
Well, that's a
When they
possibility.
first came
Right,
out,
right.
I ended up buying 25 of them and giving them away. Because I just don't, I'm already paying property tax.
Yes.
Right,
Transfer station's part of that bill.
right.
I'm done.
Yep.
But, you know, for me, I've got a guy that operates a backhoe, okay? I'm gonna put him on the CD container most of the time, doing the brush hill. I'm gonna have him doing that stuff. But when he's got a spare 15 minutes, then he's gonna go over and clean up the swap shop. So the issue to me is either close it or keep it open, and we continue on and try to be the nice place to be.
Alyssa?
We used to have a recycling committee, and it seems that this is a perennial problem, and the public needs to be educated. There are places where you can bring your usable stuff, a lot of places. You can use free cycle, and someone comes to your house, picks it up, takes it away. I mean, people could be encouraged to do that. And I'm wondering if in your master plan, if one of the chapters includes for facilities or whatever, looking at the trend to no swap shops or whatever, what can be done to educate the public and what kind of incentives can be there to reduce the amount that ends up at the transfer station. Just an idea. I don't know what your topics are in your master plan, but those are the kinds of things that it doesn't go away. And some of the things are not valuable. You know, you're not getting money for things that you used to.
Well, I venture to say nothing about it.
All right, do we have anything else to discuss today? We had
Anything in
Have
the
anything to say?
non-public?
nothing we need to deal with today, no.
I didn't see it.
So, Mr. Hunter, you have any,
I was curious if you ever found out the arrangement that we had with the Fish and Games boat down at the town dock.
I don't think that we have yet. I wish that we had Adam here right now to ask, because I think he was the one we directed to get that information for us.
I just want to, is it Fish and Game or the Marine Patrol?
Fish and Game?
It's Fish and Game?
Fish and Game, yeah, and
Oh.
I don't know how long, they've been doing it ever since I've been in town, but I've not been.
Ever since a fish and game officer was a selectman.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a courtesy that the town provides to the fishing game that I think was originally just I don't ever think it was talked about at the selectmen's level. I think it just probably one fish and game officer, one selectman decided it was okay. But I think the use of that pier, we need to talk about a little more. We're gonna spend some money on it next year.
Yeah.
I think when we do spend some money on it, we will talk about it more. And the 20 moorings that we're gonna put out there and have a lottery and.
Right. Yep.
Thank you.
All right, any other business?
I see your sand pile's gone away. Where am I gonna do my sand?
Call me.
Your self-storage units are just starting to appear. Your mountain's going down. His sand, it was like this.
Yeah, there's no bad luck in Mr. Hunter's life.
Are we done?
We're done. I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
All right,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.